I'll call this meeting to order tonight. This is Monday, October 27th, and the first item, or the second item after the call to order, is the approval of the agenda, and the agenda includes open forum, our superintendent's report, 4 discussion items, which includes a presentation, discussion of the Minnesota Insurance Scholastic Trust, an international student travel request for 2015 to go to Greece, the quarterly budget report, and our 2014-2015 enrollment update, the consent agenda, and then the action agenda includes 7 items: approval of the 2015 Hennepin Youth Sports Facility application, approval of international travel for 2015 to Greece, approval of the Minnesota Insurance Scholastic Trust resolution, contract approval for the Director of Business Services, for the Director of Information Services, Director of Community Education, and Director of Special Services, followed by communications and transmittals, and then adjournment. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second by anyone?
Second.
Second by Jim, I heard. Motion by Bruce. All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And the first item is the open forum, and the only slip that I have is from a representative of the League of Women Voters. So if you'd like to come up to the microphone, you have 3 minutes. Cindy will give you the high sign, 1 minute, and we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you for having us. My name is Elsine Nisley, and I'm with a member of the League of Women Voters here in St. Louis Park. And with me is Dorothy Carlson from the League, Aggie Lighthouser, Deb Brinkman, and Debbie Blake. And we make up a committee for the Kids Voting St. Louis Park, which is a member of Kids Voting USA. It is a nonprofit, bipartisan community organization that prepares and motivates future voters with nationally acclaimed curriculum and hands-on voting experience on Election Day. The mission of Kids Vote St. Louis Park is to foster an educated and engaged electorate by partnership of the schools, families, and community to enrich the civic education of St. Louis Park citizens or students, and to prepare them to be informed voters. Kids Vote has several parts. The first one involves the participation of the school children in several classes where they learn about the right to vote, democracy, civic responsibility, and the importance of participating in the election process. That information for the curriculum is loaded on school servers for teachers to access. The second part is to fill out a ballot and place it in a ballot box, where this is the part where the community gets involved. And ideally, our volunteers are needed to man the polling places. Ideally, we would like to have the students go to the polls, the precinct polling places, and vote with their parents. Second would be to vote in a designated room at the school. Next, the ballots need to be scanned and counted, and the results reported to the students. And the high school students are a perfect match for this part of the plan. And we have ordered ballot boxes. We have sources for scanning the ballots. And grants are available for an estimated cost of $2,000, which most of it is needed for printing and promotion. The steering committee has already determined we can do a trial run next year with the Aquila School to include elementary students, and it is a polling place. The middle school offers an opportunity to vote in school only. These trial runs give us experience prior to the bigger 2016 presidential election. And the most impressive example of what this program creates happened in Duluth, Minnesota. And they started the program 20 years ago, and in 2008, they had the largest voter turnout in the country. We look forward to working with the school board and ask for your support.
brilliantly timed 3-minute presentation.
Good timing? Oh, I have a couple handouts here, just a little visual.
Thank you very much, and I understand our Director of Communications is connected on this, so
Yes.
we appreciate your presentation and all you do on behalf of the elections in St. Louis Park as well as in Minnesota. So thank you very much. We will move on to the next item then, which is the superintendent's report. So we'll turn to the superintendent.
Thank you, board members. I decided to use my time today to give an update on our new athletic conference, the Metro West. The fall season just concluded, and I'm reminding those of you at home that the Metro West Conference includes St. Louis Park, Benilde St. Margaret, Cooper High School from Robbinsdale, Chanhassen High School, Chaska, Richfield, Bloomington Jefferson, and Bloomington Kennedy. And our first time through the conference, our teams had very good success. And I'll run through the fall success report here. Starting with football. Football played a partial schedule in the Metro West Conference. Next year, they'll play a full schedule. But our football team finished with a 5-5 record, which is a very good record. They should definitely be congratulated. Our volleyball team finished last in the new conference, 8th place out of 8 teams. Our girls soccer team finished 3rd in the new conference. Our boys soccer team finished 2nd in the new conference. Our boys cross country team finished 4th out of the 8 schools in the conference. Girls cross country finished 2nd out of the 8 teams in the conference. Girls swimming finished 3rd out of the 8 teams in the conference, and the girls tennis team finished 4th out of the 8 teams in the conference. So the first time through, our young athletes did a very good job, and I just wanted to give you an update on their success.
Wrong. Good. Got to remember which button to push now that I got the laptop here too. But that's a great record, and thanks for letting our community know about that. First item on the discussion of the discussion items is the Minnesota Insurance Scholastic Trust presentation, and Sandy Celine will be beginning that presentation.
Thank you. I do have a guest here today, who's David Howard from Arthur Gallagher Risk Management Services, who's going to present this for us tonight. And what he's going to present is a program that we are given an opportunity to join with the board resolution for approval tonight called the Minnesota Insurance Scholastic Trust Program. And it's a pooling effort of school districts to get a good insurance program for a lower cost. And with that, I'm going to give it to the expert here, our insurance broker, who can give a presentation on what this program entails.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. Yes, we'd like to make a recommendation that we change our insurance program this year, that we move to the Minnesota Insurance Scholastic Trust, better known as MIST. MIST is a cooperative purchasing group for property and casualty insurance. It does not include the workers' compensation. That comes up at a different date for the school district. The group is exclusive to Minnesota school districts. We had to apply and to be approved by the Minnesota Department of Commerce. It is a fully insured program. The uniqueness of this program and some of the cost savings is because we are, as a group, paying our what we call our expected losses, our low-level claims that we expect to have each and every year. We are buying insurance over and above that, up into the millions. This program delivers us better pricing, to the school district better pricing. It delivers us broader insurance coverage. It also will stabilize the future marketing efforts and rates of the school district. And it will also give them greater control because they'll be in a group in which the decisions are made solely by the school member districts or the school district members that are on the board. My firm provides the administration and the council, but all decisions are made by our 7 board positions. Do you have this slide up there, though? Okay. Just quickly want to show you how this program is set up, just so, again, with what people fear often is that it is pure self-insurance. And when I say that, people are concerned that we don't have insurance, that we're self-insuring everything. And that's not the case at all, as this graph will demonstrate. As I said, we have what's called a loss fund. The loss fund is each district, we analyze their past 5 years of claims under $75,000, and we have an actuary that determines what each district's contribution to our loss fund is. Our loss fund is that green box on the right-hand side. We pool those dollars, and those dollars are used by the group to pay claims of $75,000 or less, represented by the green box on the three towers to your left. The school districts each have an individual deductible, $5,000 for a property claim. The district's current deductible, expiring deductible, is $25,000 for property, so we've reduced that. The next $75,000 is paid by the group, and that depletes, not depletes, but it reduces the loss fund. And then anything over and above that amount is fully insured. And that goes for liability losses. The middle column there's no deductible for the school district there. The loss fund or the group pays the first $75,000 of a claim. Everything above there up to $4 million is insured. Same thing with the crime loss, $1,000 deductible. We have a $50,000 loss fund contribution, and then everything else is insured. So it is a fully insured plan. All the insurance companies are A or A+ rated, so they'll meet the requirements of any stakeholders you have. And we started this plan in Minnesota in July of 2013, but as a company, we've been doing these types of plans throughout the Midwest since 1982. So we're very experienced at running them. The other thing I want to point out is that this loss fund, again, is made up of all the schools contributing based on what their 5-year claims experience has been. If for some reason that number or that we have enough $75,000 claims in a year that exhaust that fund, the blue box above that is insurance. We buy insurance that sits on top of that. So another $2 million provided by the insurance company. That way there's no assessment. And so by doing so, this plan can give a maximum out-of-pocket cost to the school boards. You'll know what the worst-case scenario is. But the advantage is if that loss fund is not used up, and it typically is not used up in any given year, that money that's left over is returned to the member districts. So it's the only program I know where you have a chance of getting some of your premium dollars back. Currently, insurance companies figure out what your expected losses are, and they charge you premium, dollar-for-dollar trade for that amount. So that's how we're saving money. We're saying we'll do that ourselves, and we expect to have a less than $419,000 a year and be able to return funds to all our members. Any other questions that I could answer at this time?
Board members, do you have any questions? None?
Thank you very much.
Just a second.
Yes,
Jim,
sir.
did you?
Just point out that we spent, prior to this meeting, a half hour, so we talked about a lot of things there just to get some background.
And one of the things we talked about was that the alternative products that were out there were going to be more expensive with less coverage, I believe you said.
Much more expensive, less coverage, much higher deductibles, yes. So clearly this is the best option for this year.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
All right.
This item is on for
Thank you.
approval later in our agenda this evening when we get to the action agenda. But for right now, we'll move on to our next discussion item, which is the international student travel request from one of our high school teachers, Jeff Cohen. Are you going to start on this one, Superintendent Metz? Or?
I can. I get the pleasure of introducing Jeff Cohen, social studies teacher at the high school. He was here a year ago asking for permission to take a group of students to Europe, which he did. It was a successful trip. So he's back asking the board for permission to take a trip again this year. And Jeff, before you get into this year's trip, can you give us some feedback on last year's trip?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Superintendent Metz, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I appreciate you having me here. And yeah, we had a great trip. last spring. We went to about 15 of us, myself, Ms. Lindenberg, went to London, Paris, Florence, and Rome. And it was, I don't know if I had more fun just myself seeing these places that I teach about every day or watching the kids and their reactions to some of these places. But it was a great success. No trouble. The kids were great. We go through a company called EF Tours, and they've been doing this for more than 50 years. We have a tour director 24/7, which makes it, really, really nice and efficient. But, I'd be happy to talk more about the details of the trip and, if you'd like. Otherwise, I can get on to my purpose tonight is to ask the board again for approval to go to Greece this coming spring. And I anticipate having about the same amount of students. Right now, there are 11 students and a parent that are signed up to go pending board approval. I anticipate 1 or 2 additional students. And the way EF Tours runs their operation is that for every 6 students, there's a chaperone required to be with. Both last trip and this trip, I've had a parent who's interested in being a paying customer. So, I really benefit, as well as the additional teacher, to join me. Not only do we have the maximum of 6-to-1 student to adult ratio, but we also have an adult, a parent, who's there to really help. So, I anticipate, again, having 3 adults. We have a mother signed up of one of my students. Miss Skadden, AP World History teacher, will join me this year, hopefully. And, if I get 2 more students to sign up, I'll have 13 students with 3 adults. So the ratio is great. I mean, it's ideal. Couple of questions I know that were put out there prior to the meeting. The cost of the trip is approximately $3,400, $3,400. And what EF does, and the reason that I planned this so early in advance, is that most students and families prefer to set up a payment plan. They go along. Fundraising, I don't do any formal fundraising. I don't do any fundraising as a group. EF Tours does offer some suggestions for individual students that wish to try to fundraise. It's a very small group. The group usually consists of either my current or former students who, like me, just love history and want to go see, parts of Europe, potentially other parts of the world that they would like to, experience firsthand. So it's a small trip, usually 15 or less. Parent meetings. There was a question about parent meetings. I've had 2 parent meetings thus far, and I anticipate having at least 2 more. Okay, one before registration closes, which is the last week of December, and then we always have our pre-departure meeting in April, where we're getting really close to the time of the trip. I go through all the ground rules, expectations. Very very thorough packing list. Expectations, all that other stuff. I feel like I'm missing one. Did I hit them all? I did. All right. That's after being in a conference all day.
Well, now we'll test you. And see
Yes,
what questions
please,
we have
please.
from the board. Bruce?
In Greece, what do you expect to have as an educational benefit for the children?
Yeah, and this is, this is a educational trip. This isn't a spring break party trip by any means. Last year, I think obviously when you go to London, Paris, Florence, and Rome, you're hitting 4 of the major cities of European history that we study. This year, we'll be spending part of the time in Athens, which is really where it all begins. It's where I begin my course, my world history. When I teach it, we spend a lot of time talking about ancient Greece and ancient Rome. Some of the islands that we'll visit after we depart Athens blend, 3 critical cultures in world history, certainly in Western civilization, Greek, Roman, and the Ottoman Empire had some significant influence in some of these islands. So they're going to get to see three, again, just classic major areas of culture and civilization that is just in a book to them, at best in a video. From the obvious, the Parthenon, the Acropolis. They'll actually be able to say that they have been to Turkey. We're going to visit one of the Turkish islands in the Aegean Sea. So I know students are excited about saying they've been to Turkey too.
Okay. Jim?
Well, I can't resist giving the prior presentation, but insurance, I think in our earlier meeting, we talked about that such student trips outside are covered, and we have policies, but I'm sure you'll check that out before.
EF Tour, they do provide full comprehensive coverage for all students, and in the district and everything else. And I believe I presented that last year. I can get the details to the board if they want, but they are fully insured. And parents can also purchase additional insurance, medical emergency, stuff like that. And they're strongly recommended to do so.
Ken?
So after this gets published and goes on airway, there's going to be many, many people knocking on your door. What is your cutoff?
Well, there's no cutoff. For me to get more than 30 or 40 students would be kind of unheard of. I think the fact that they require 6 chaperones, or I'm sorry, a chaperone for every 6 students. I mean, if I were to get 32 students, which I suspect I won't, we'd have 4 adults plus the parent at a minimum. So there's never more than 6 students for an adult. Period. It just doesn't happen. It's not allowed with this company, which is part of the reason why I went with them. But this type of trip, both in my own limited experience at this school, but many other teachers that I have talked to in the past, 15 to 20 is a really good, type of turnout. When you consider band trips and the French and the different trips, the German trips that also go, it's pretty a pretty small group usually.
And my last question relates to behavior. I mean, it's wonderful to have a small ratio and an extra parent, and you tell the students all the things they can and can't do. And is there sometimes, hopefully not often and rarely, and hopefully not at all on this trip, something still goes wrong? Are there provisions for if there are behavior issues on the trip?
Well, and I guess I'm not exactly sure when you say provisions, but I tell the students and I tell the parents at least twice at my initial meeting that I've already had, and then at the kind of the final departure meeting, I tell them that EF Tours will, and I fully support it, any problems with any students, EF Tour will provide me with a taxi or some type of shuttle service to take that student with a representative of EF Tours. Another reason why I love this company, they're in most of the major cities around the world. They will come with a staff member and a ride and take a student who is potentially committed any of the violations that I define and send them home at the parent's expense. So that's exactly
what I mean. And
yeah, and
hopefully you do not need to take advantage of that, but it's important that those kind of things are in place and that the students and parents are well aware of it.
Yeah, well, exactly. Most importantly, the parents, because when they get a call in the middle of the night saying their student's coming home for whatever, they know that I mean that, and that's certainly out there.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, we're all insanely jealous, so have a great trip.
Well, is it Mr. Morrison? If he's right, possibly if I do have this late rush of students, I'm going to need. I can't take many more teachers out of the classroom, so I may need some people too.
Well, he might be talking about his own child, so look for him to sign up. So sounds good. The approval is on our agenda later on, so we'll get to that shortly. But thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
So now we are on to the quarterly budget report. So Sandy, Celine, you are back on the reporting side.
And this is something that we do on a quarterly basis for the board. And this is a reporting system that I do every quarter to show what the spending trends are at this point in time during the year in comparison to this point in the time the prior year, to give us an idea of how we are on track with our spending patterns. And again, looking at this, we're comparing end of September of this year to the end of September last year, based on what our budgets were at June 30th of last year to September 30th of this year, knowing that we will have budget amendments that may or may not happen in January, but that's yet to be determined. But even looking at what we have in our budgets at this point in time and where our spending patterns are, it's comparable to what it was in the prior year. You will notice, some variations between line items. I think there's one in instructional line item, expenses in the line item where it's a little bit higher than what it was in the prior year, but that had to do with there was a severance payment, and normally we have most of our severance payments coming out of regular education, but you'll notice that kind of went down, so it kind of washes each other out. But all in all, I don't see any spending pattern variances at this point in time in our spending. So with that, unless there's any questions, that's all I have for you tonight.
Are there any questions from the board? Okay, no questions, but it's good to have this regular quarterly report so we can keep track.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is the enrollment update. And Superintendent Metz will start that off, and Linda Stanley will be joining him.
Good evening, board members and members of the audience. I'm here with Linda Stanley. She is going to assist me with this presentation. Each year we keep close track of our student enrollment. It's very important, of course, to know what the patterns and trends are with our enrollment. It has impact on our finances and impact on our facility use and impact on lots of different things. I'm showing you, first of all, a chart that outlines the enrollment over the last 7 years. Starting on the left-hand side, the bottom row, the bottom line, shows from left to right enrollment from the first day of school to the last day of school. And then as you climb up the lines, you get all the way up to this year. The highest line on this chart shows this fall. So you can see a couple of patterns here. One is that our enrollment has been steadily increasing, bit by bit, piece by piece, from about 4,200 students 7 years ago to over 4,600 students this year. It's a really good position to be in as a school district, not to be experiencing declining enrollment and not to be experiencing out of control growth, but a nice steady growth pattern. This is really, really good to see. We do lose some students as the year progresses, and you can see by the end of the year we've lost some students. That's very typical for a school district. We are an in-demand school district, so we have open enrollment closed for the vast majority of the year, which means students leave, but it's much more difficult for them to come in once the year begins. And so that gradual decline is nothing to be alarmed about. Although you can see last year, the decline was far less. We maintained more students than in any recent year from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So a nice steady growth pattern. The next chart I'd like to show you are the class sizes and the total enrollment for all of the classrooms, the grade levels, and the schools in St. Louis Park. A couple things to point out is that Aquila has quickly become the largest elementary school. As of October 1st, 581 students at Aquila. Peter Hobart, 563. Susan Lindgren, 559. And Park Spanish Immersion, 506. The middle school has 985 students. It's been gradually growing in enrollment, and you can see that that's going to continue. I'll point that out in just a minute. And the high school, exactly 1,400 students. I remember a few years ago it was 1,200 students at the high school, and now to reach the 1,400 mark is a little bit of an accomplishment. It makes me feel good to see that. Causes problems in our lunchroom for too much crowding, but other than that, it's really, really good news. If you look across the bottom line, this tells you the enrollment by grade level. And there's something important to point out here, in that the three largest grades in our district are kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. And we're watching that very closely to see if that's going to continue, if that's a trend that's with us for a long time. A small group of us met with city staff today, and they feel like this is a trend that's going to continue. We have another follow-up meeting where we're going to look at all the housing patterns in the city more closely. But at least for the last 3 years, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade are the three largest grade levels in our district. I try to move them up in my mind to think, when they're at the middle school, how many students will be at the middle school? When they're at the high school, how many students will be at the high school? So that's this year's numbers. Another thing I can point out is in the bottom right-hand corner of this chart. It's a little hard to see, but it shows the number of students that were here on the last day of school last year, 4,479, and the number of students that were here on October 1st of this year, 4,594. So there were 115 more students in our schools from the last day of school last year to the first day of school this year. Actually, not the first day of school, but October 1. And then the last chart I will put up here is a description of the number of students that entered in new to the district this year as open enrolled students. And I may have Linda speak to this in a moment, but we have fewer open enrolled students this year than in my recent memory, because we closed early. We knew we were getting full. We're building 9 classrooms onto our elementary schools as we speak. And those classrooms are not ready, and we knew they weren't going to be ready by the first day of school. So we restricted the number of open enrollment students that we accepted, especially in the elementary schools. We always accept quite a few students in 9th grade as open enrolled students. We have some very good partners around the metro area, students who go to K-8 schools outside of our district. But in 9th grade, they come to St. Louis Park High School. And this year there were 49 students that came to St. Louis Park High School for the first time, school district I should say, came to the St. Louis Park School District for the first time in 9th grade. That's very typical. About 50 per year that we bring in 9th grade. So looking back to the last chart, if you look at the kindergarten, first grade, and second grade numbers that are already at about 390, and assume that we're going to keep adding 50 students in 9th grade, those class sizes bounce up to 435 as 9th, 10th, 11th grade classrooms. So you can see that in the elementary schools, we took far fewer open enrollment students, and just because we were very cautious about the space. We had more that wanted to come, but we didn't accept open enrollment very much this year at all. Made some exceptions for students of our own staff. We made some exceptions for students who already had brothers and sisters here in St. Louis Park. But other than that, we were pretty tight on open enrollment. So I'm going to ask Linda to add anything that she would like to add that I may have missed, and then we'll try to answer your questions.
Well, he's right. This year we did close early. We closed the high school in May, and we have 20 students. We keep that wait list open. We look at the numbers, and now we'll look at them for second semester and see if we've lost kids and contact them. And we have 33 kids at the elementary school still sitting on wait lists. We looked at the numbers about every 2 weeks, looked at class sizes, know that we had limited space. By adding all-day kindergarten, you take up more classrooms, so it wasn't like there was a spot to open a new classroom. And in the elementary, 85% of them had a sibling already in the school. Otherwise, they were put on wait lists. Kindergarten was the highest. We have 18 kids that we put on a wait list for kindergarten. We only took siblings in kindergarten, knowing in February by our state deadline that we're not going to know until the end of March after Roundup. So we had kids come in, we have big wait lists. We have kids that we do accept that don't come. They've applied at multiple schools, they changed their mind, they have since moved someplace else. And one other thing is we took in 45 new choice students this year, and so our total choice population is 266. And total open enrolled at this point is 659 kids are open enrolled into St. Louis Park.
Okay, questions from the board? Jim?
So Rob, overall, our numbers look pretty good. I know we have a couple hot spots you mentioned last time. Looks like kindergarten's still big. Could you talk a bit about what supports maybe you've done? I know ideally, you'd want to be, what, 19, 20, 21 with kindergarten?
Yes, even though we restricted open enrollment in kindergarten, that's my one level of concern, and we've added some staffing there. Our kindergarten class sizes are larger, between 23 and up to 26 in some cases. At the beginning of the year, all kindergarten teachers, with the advent of all-day kindergarten, had a 3-hour-a-day assistant in their classroom. And at 2 schools, Aquila and Susan Lindgren, we've increased that time up to 5 hours a day for each assistant. And I've spent quite a bit of time, Carrie Ross, our Director of Teaching and Learning, has spent quite a bit of time in those kindergarten rooms. And they're doing a fabulous job. So the class sizes in kindergarten are larger than we would have liked, but we did increase the paraprofessional time. So there's 2 adults in those rooms for most of the day. And I should add, other than that, our class sizes are actually really, really good. They're very good. And it's always a little bit of a guessing game, as Linda said, especially in kindergarten, where we get numbers from kindergarten roundup, and then all summer long, Linda is contacting secretaries in the buildings, are calling families, and it's a moving target to make an educated guess how many kindergartners are going to show up on the first day and the second and the third day. But that's the most challenging. Once they're here, we can predict very closely how many are going to be here in first grade, from kindergarten to first grade. But that first year, it's a challenge to get that number right.
And I think for kindergarten, we only took at Aquila, Peter Hobart, and Susan Lincoln, we only took 2 kids at kindergarten. So it didn't change the class sizes, but they had siblings.
Yeah, it's a little different dynamic than what I've seen in the past, in that if you look at the kindergarten numbers, the vast majority of those students live in St. Louis Park. And the number of open enrolled students is far less than it has been.
The open enrolled has down because we've cut it off, but do we still get a high demand requested for open enrollment?
We do. We do. We still have people now wanting to come for this current school year. We have 55 kids on the wait list who have actually sent in an application. People will call, and I tell them there's a wait list. We look at it, as we go. Chances are we wouldn't, like at the 7th, 6th grade up, second semester, some will send in an application and some people just don't. So those are people who actually still want to come.
And one thing I will add to that, Julie, is the board members know that we are going to begin a 5-year strategic planning process in the spring. And one of the key components of that is going to be projecting our future enrollment and planning for space and facilities for these students.
Sounds good. Any other questions from the board or comments?
Yeah, I was just telling Bruce that Rob read my mind, because I was just about to mention that this dovetails well into strategic planning process and who we are and what brand we are if we want to grow, if we want to stay the same size, using open enrollment as kind of that spigot for our overall enrollment. I guess spigot's kind of a crude way to put it, but because they are kids, but
Facility
yeah.
of expression.
Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, that's I think that's a good good point that we really need to bring this enrollment piece and our buildings piece into our strategic plan and know that that has a large effect on, you know, our brand. So.
Yep. And as long as Linda's here, I want to thank her for all of her work. She does the work of three sometimes to track all of this data for us and connect it to the state of Minnesota, because our funding comes from our enrollment. So we want to thank her for all of her good work.
And we do thank you, Linda. You've always got the answer when we ask the questions, so you know your business.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item is the consent agenda, and we have no discussion on that, so if there's a motion to approve it. Motion from, was that Ken or Jim? Jim, and then second by Karen. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. 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 Anybody opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And so we are on to our action item. And the first item on the action agenda is the approval of the Hennepin Youth Sports Facility Grant. It's recommended that the school board approve the 2015 Hennepin Youth Sports Facility Application Grant as presented. And Superintendent Metz, we talked about this last time, but you made some changes. Can you explain that, please?
I can. We made some changes after our discussion 2 weeks ago to add permanent bathrooms in the plan. So they have been added, and the grant has actually already been sent off to Hennepin County as of October 20th. So it's already under consideration. We have to approve it tonight to make it official.
Questions? Jim?
Rob, one of the concerns they had with the permanent bathrooms was the ongoing maintenance. Did you figure out a number of that? It seems manageable then and not too bad. And if so, then is controlling of what groups get to use those bathrooms, is that a factor as well?
We don't have all the details worked out yet, but we have plenty of people to talk to get ideas. I went to the, sad to say, but now I'm checking out bathrooms wherever I'm going at athletic events, but I went to Minneapolis Southwest this week to watch our football team play and checked out their bathrooms while I was there. So yes, we have people we can get advice from, and we'll take care of that.
Any other questions? I wanted to be clear because I couldn't read the diagrams that well. The bathrooms that you're proposing are in the locker rooms, not for the public, or is it the other way around?
It's the other way around. So if you're familiar with our stadium where the concession stands are, think of that concession stand building as a much larger remodeled building with new ticket windows, new concession stand windows, and bathrooms in that building, so that both home and visitor side will have access to the bathrooms.
Anything else? Okay, is there a motion to approve the grant as recommended? Second? Motion by Jim and second by Bruce. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The next item is the request for approval of international travel in 2015 to Greece, and it's recommended that the school board approve the 2015 international travel request to Greece for the high school history students to attend. We've already heard that. Are there any more questions from the board? All right, then, and would somebody like to make the motion to approve the travel? Motion by Karen. Second by Ken. Told you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Third item is approval of the Minnesota Insurance Scholastic Trust Resolution. It's recommended that the school board approve the Minnesota Insurance Scholastic Trust Resolution as presented.
Move approval?
We have a motion by Bruce, second by Jim. Any further discussion or questions from the board? All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Carries again 6-0. The next item, D, is contract approval for the Director of Business Services from July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2016. It's recommended that the board approve the employment agreement between Independent School District 283 and the Director of Business Services, Sandy Salim, for the July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2016 school years as presented. And will that be Director Cryer? Mr. Cryer? Or
Rick, would you like to speak to the contracts that are before us tonight?
Sure, I just didn't know if you wanted to say anything first, Superintendent. There's a number of...
you'll need to push your the button for the microphone down.
I missed the training session again. Sorry about that. Yep, thank you very much. So there are 4 director contracts before the board this evening. We did 2 of them earlier in August. We have 1 remaining to bring before the board. It's just a matter of kind of getting with everyone and working through all of these. Our goal here is to standardize our director contracts. They've been written by different people over different times, and they have different provisions and in different formatting, and there's different provisions in them. So we've been going through and making them standard, consistent, so that they actually look like a group that would all be relatively consistent. In that, we've also been looking at St. Louis Park salary rates of pay in relation to the metro area rates of pay for similar job titles, just as a check to see that we're in the ballpark with what other positions are like in the metro area. And so for the rates that we have that were in these contracts, they're very similar to what we did with other negotiated salary increases, where as a rule they were basically a standard 3% increase over what the rates were in their previous contracts.
Okay, are there any questions from board members? Let's do them one at a time, but that was an overall introduction, so I did notice the standardization of terms. That's what I looked at them for. Any questions from other board members? Jim?
Just a comment. I see we're behind a little, at least on this first one, so appreciate the patience, and we're getting it done now, and but looks like we're a little behind from when the prior contract expired, so thank you.
Bruce?
Rick, on the one of the contracts for the information services is a July 1, 2014 through 2016, but then they'd all end in 2016. I just want to make sure that was the right date on that one. And now that all ending in 2016 would standardize all the contracts. Is that correct?
That's correct. The difference there is the current director of information technology was in one of our different units. He was in the supervisor manager bargaining group, and so effective at the beginning of 14, we moved him into this director contract, and then it will terminate consistent with all the other.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Oh, Joe.
I don't have a question so much as a comment, my normal wet blanket comment on these contracts, and just to say that, there's a high level of expectations for everyone here and making sure that we're doing things better and better. I said it during the superintendent's contract that, he had a great last year and we expect the next year to be better. And, the same thing goes for all of these contracts. And I want to, specifically call out the information services contract and how important it is that we get our digital infrastructure and bring that up. I know that Tom has made a lot of headway on the Wi-Fi part of that, and we expect that to continue. He's done great work so far, and so is the rest of this group.
Okay, with that, is there a motion to approve the contract for the Director of Business Services? Moved by Ken, second by Joe. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item is the contract for Director of Information Services, and it's recommended that the school board approve the employment agreement between Independent School District 283 and the Director of Information Services, Tom Marble, for the July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2016 school years as presented. Any further questions? Somebody could have asked a question while I was coughing and cover that up gracefully. But since you didn't,
I will
would somebody
move
like to make the
approval.
motion? Thank you, Joe.
Second?
And a second by Bruce, I heard first. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Our third contract is for Director of Community Education, and it's recommended that the school board approve the employment agreement between Independent School District 283, that's us, and the Director of Community Education, Lisa Green, for the July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2016 school years as presented. Any further questions? And then would somebody like to make the motion? Moved by Karen. Second by Ken. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And the last contract approval is for Director of Special Services. It's recommended that the school board approve the employment agreement between Independent School District 283 and the Director of Special Services, Tammy Reynolds, for July 1st, 2013 through June 13th, 2016 school years as presented. Last opportunity. Any more questions? All right. Would somebody like to make the motion? I hear a choir down there. Let's see, Jim, you've had more. Should we have Karen take the motion and Ken second? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We like our directors. Great. Next item, communication and transmittals. I know we've got a couple. So, Karen? And you go.
Thank you, Julie. So talking about Children First assets, one of my favorite things to talk about, especially this month, asset number 25 is Reading for Pleasure. And every single one of our elementary schools has done a readathon type fundraiser. So they're not trying to sell wrapping paper or candy. They're reading, which is great. We have some fabulous results in so far. Peter Hobart had theirs from September 26th through the 30th. They read 200,000 minutes. And then Susan Lindgren, they had a goal of 118,000 and they blew it away with 170,000 minutes. So way to go, kids. PSI is underway with the Lyrathon, I hope I said that right, October 15th through November 3rd. And Aquila Reads is October 29th through November 14th. So if you're looking for a way to support enrichment activities in our schools, sponsor a kid who is reading and reading for pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful. Bruce?
I absolutely love talking about our kids and what they do. The presentation this year for the high school musical is Xanadu. I'm not familiar with the play, but I am familiar with some of the musicians, and one of my best friends plays the piano for it, Pastor Tim Rauch, and it is, he says it's fabulous, it's coming together great. It is performed November 14th through 16th and the 21st through the 23rd. So the Fridays and Saturday performances are at 7 o'clock, Sundays at 2 o'clock. And there's an interesting note on this invitation. Adults are $10, students and senior citizens are $7, Special on-stage seating is $12. So I'm not sure what that's all about, but I'm sure it'll be fun, and it should be, it's a kind of a rock and roll type thing, and it should be a great play, and I'm always amazed by the talent that our kids bring to these things, and I'm tickled that the high school is doing it.
Any other communications? Just looking at the school calendar and having been in the schools, I know most of our schools have conferences coming up. We're sitting here tonight on the 27th. So some of that has happened, but there are still dates coming up if you have kids in the schools, and no kids in the schools this Friday on October 31st. There are conferences at some of the schools that day, but no school session. Me again. I think that's a sign. Should we adjourn? I heard Jim and then Ken. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Not me. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.